In the name of God, the compassionate, the merciful. In the next scene, as an open bright space is shown, we see a hunkering statue of the devil. At the same instance, we see the opening to a cave beneath the statue through which the Antichrist suddenly exits. Within the dark background, we see its ceiling collapsing and falling down. The Antichrist passes the distance between the cave's opening and the open sea with quite the speed, approaching the rising sun. As the boat moves, several lotus flowers bloom in the water and start floating in and around the path in which the boat is moving through the water. This scene is very complex and needs explanations in various layers. In the first layer of the analysis of this scene, we should first point to the devilish statue that we observed in its initial moments. This statue is referring to an architectural work called the Cornhill Devils in the vicinity of the St. Peter Church in London. St. Peter upon Cornhill is a church in the Cornhill district of London, near River Thames. Some strange and peculiar evil symbols have been used in building next to this church, the most important of which are the three statues of the devil known as the Cornhill Devils. The Cornhill Devils, and especially the largest of the three statues, have been depicted in a squatting position and largely resemble the hunkering devil statue in the animation I, Pet Goat 2. The purpose for which these statues were built has been noted as the quarrel between the church's deputy and the architect of the neighboring building among common folk, some websites, and some books. However, this claim is so naive and demagogic. In order to better understand this issue, we shall recount a brief history of the St. Peter upon Cornhill Church's building. St. Peter upon Cornhill is a very old church, and its construction is attributed to the 5th or 6th century. However, the church was completely burnt and ruined in a fire in 1666 in London. It was then renovated by the Mason English Freemason architect Sir Christopher Wren in 1667. The building next to the church was built in 1893 by another famous architect, Ernest Augustus Rothes, who was also a Freemason. Hence, the Cornhill Devils were made not because of a foolish quarrel between two people, but because of a plan made by the Freemasonry and Illuminati. In the second layer analysis of this scene of the animation, we should infer that the fire in 1666 in London was not just a simple fire. Many researchers label this incident as an intentional fire which took place in the Freemasons and Satanists' magical year, when the 3 sixes in the year number created the number 666 that is favored by Satanists. The significant notion is that following this large fire in London, many other churches and Christian cultural centers also caught on fire. After the fires were extinguished, Freemasons, most of whom were architects as well, requested to play key roles in the renovation of the churches. Considering what was discussed, many researchers know that the year 1666 as the key golden year of the Freemasons and the year in which they openly and officially started their activities within the society. Hence, this year is counted as a historical turning point in the Freemasons' history. One of the key Freemasonry figures of that era was Sir Christopher Wren, who undertook the construction of 52 churches, one of which was the St. Peter upon Cornhill Church. Of course, other Freemasons completed Sir Christopher Wren's work at the time or later by using various Masonic symbols in the renovated buildings in London. Ernest Augustus Rothes was one of these architects who left his mark on the building next to the church as the Cornhill Devils statues, thus indicating the devils in this scene of the animation is a cryptic reference to important Freemasonry historic events, and in particular the Great Fire in London, which is a holy fire in the eyes of the Freemasons and has been supported by its protectors called the Keepers of the Flame. In other words, this scene is demonstrating the role of the Masonic holy fire in creating political, cultural, and social revolutions all over the world. In subsequent scenes, we shall further comprehend other aspects of the Masonic fire's importance. In the third layer of the analysis of this scene, by cryptically pointing towards the Cornhill Devils, the reopening of the St. Peter upon Cornhill Church, and the Great London Fire in 1666, this scene is secretly indicating that the destruction of 52 religious and doctrinal centers in the Holy Freemasonry Fire is an important code word for the beginning of the modern Masonic age. It is fascinating to see that Donald Trump sent a controversial tweet that used the same code word and alluded to targeting 52 sensitive Iranian locations, most of which were religious and cultural sites. The tweet, which was sent in the middle of the military tensions between Iran and the US in 2020, in particular emphasized the destruction of religious cultural sites that ensued some responses and reactions. However, aside from the tweet's apparent meaning, that was a kind of threat, it was intended as a secret message to all Freemasons and Illuminati members around the world that Donald Trump is ready to announce the start of the modern Masonic age by destroying 52 cultural and religious targets in Iran, much like the Great London Fire in 1666. Of course, such event will not take place, and in the future, the global Freemasonry shall be destroyed forever. Hence, as you observed, important cryptic messages have been sent to members of the global Freemasonry in various layers of this scene of the animation, using the Cornhill Devils symbology. In the fourth layer of the analysis, we should pay attention to the fact that, in addition to the Cornhill Devils, there are numerous statues used in the architecture of the Notre Dame Cathedral, which include hunchbacked devils, monsters, demons, and hybrid animals known as chimeras. These have been indicated in the novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame by Victor Hugo, as well as its film and animation adaptations. Furthermore, similar to the previous discussions regarding the Cornhill Devils, we should point out the fact that in April 2019, the Notre Dame Cathedral of Paris was caught on a suspicious fire, which turned into the most important news piece within the media at the time, bearing in mind the proximity of its timing to the Easter celebrations. Considering that a large portion of the next scene deals with the burning of churches in April 2019, and in particular the Notre Dame Cathedral, and also the description of hidden and Masonic elements within the novel The Hunchback of Notre Dame, we withdraw from further explanations in this part and shall comprehensively specify these in the next scene's analysis. In the fifth tier analysis of this scene, we should mention that the blossoming of several lotus flowers as the boat moves towards the rising sun is again indicating Ra, the sun god of the ancient Egypt, who was born from within the lotus flower in Egyptian mythology. Thus, both the rising sun and the blooming of the lotuses are in the sense of the rebirth of Ra, the sun god of the ancient Egypt. In the next scene, we see the Antichrist suddenly waking up and looking at the rising sun with eyes filled with flames of fire. Then, suddenly the barbed wire on his head disappears as he smiles delicately and cunningly. As soon as the barbed wire is removed, we see an ice cathedral collapsing and demolishing in front of the cave's opening. The Antichrist then continues his motion on water as the camera makes a strange pause and leads the screen towards the left of where the church is being demolished. We then see some ice cliffs with peculiar shapes and a wisp of cloud resembling a purple-themed rabbit. The scene is one of the heaviest and most complex scenes of the animation, which requires extensive attention and focus. Hence, we shall attentively reveal the hidden mysteries of this scene of the animation in various layers. In the first layer of the analysis of this scene, we should first mention that the Antichrist's awakening is in the sense of his full preparedness for coronation in his capital, which is Jerusalem. Furthermore, the existence of fire in his eyes and the flames in his beard and other body parts indicate the fact that the Antichrist is the heir to the evil fire in Freemasons, Illuminati, and Satanists' eyes, who have been protecting it for years. In the second layer analysis of this scene, we must point out that a very important concept is embedded within the removal of the barbed wire from the Antichrist's head as he awakens. Since many of the religious Christian works of art, such as paintings and sculptures, depict Jesus Christ, blessings upon him, with a crown of thorns on his head. The crown of thorns is a symbol of the hardships endured by the Christ, according to Christian beliefs. Considering this fact, the removal of the barbed wire from the Antichrist's head a short while after his awakening indicates that until the very last moments in which his military, political, and cultural actions and movements concerning his coronation in Jerusalem are completed, he shall introduce himself as Christ, blessings upon him, by deceiving the Western Christians, especially evangelicals, with the claims of the resurrection of Christ. He shall use their capabilities in execution of his evil plans and shall show his evil anti-religious face to the people of the world after he reaches his evil goals. In the third layer of the analysis of this scene, we should indicate the immediate collapse of the frozen church behind the Antichrist after the barbed wires are removed from his head. This part of the iPetGo 2 animation has become very popular within the international media. In particular, the collapse of the mentioned church in this scene has been attributed to the Notre Dame Cathedral fire in Paris in 2019 within the mass media. It's been stated that the director of this animation predicted the Notre Dame Cathedral fire in Paris in 2012. Such a claim in the middle of the year 2019 created a lot of noise, although it was more or less a media signal to Freemasons and members of Illuminati worldwide rather than an apocalyptic prediction. In truth, the Notre Dame fire in 2019 led to the iPetGo 2 animation, which was first released in 2012, to resurface from the archives and receive media attention. In other words, this 7-minute long animation became the focus of attention exactly 7 years after its initial release to remind the ready-for-action Freemasons that now is the time for the execution of many codes and secrets for the final stage of the Antichrist's return, while deceiving the public as a prophetic animation. For this reason, a large wall should be built between what has been said with regards to this animation among people in public media and what message the Masonic and Illuminati groups have received through it. Considering this notion, we now analyze the operational implications of this scene for the Masonic societies without paying attention to what has been publicly stated about it in mass media, news networks, YouTube channels, Instagram pages, and other forms of media. The destruction of the church in this scene is indicating the Freemasonry and Illuminati's plan for burning down the world's churches as a symbolic act for the beginning of the new Masonic age rather than an indication towards Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. The church that has been indicated in this animation mostly resembles Dome Cathedral in Cologne, Germany, rather than Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris. Nevertheless, in general, due to various evidence such as the presence of demonic and evil statues in the previous scene of the animation as well as Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, this church creates a precise and meticulous link with Notre Dame Cathedral. These simultaneous similarities and differences are in general indicating the destruction of churches by fire. In particular, the Great London Fire in 1666, in which many churches burned, was referenced previously by showing the Cornhill Devils. Subsequently, 52 of those churches were renovated by Sir Christopher Wren, the famous Freemason. Considering the sequence of these two scenes in the animation, it seems that this scene is indicating the burning of many churches in the world concurrent with the awakening of the Antichrist and his preparation for his impending coronation in Jerusalem. Such Masonic planning is completely linked with the events that occurred in April 2019. On April 15, 2019, Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris suspiciously caught on fire. And on April 21st, explosions occurred in 3 churches in Sri Lanka, which were imputed to fanatic Islamic groups. Hence, this scene of the animation is pointing toward the burning of churches at the end of the old time in the year 2019, which is a signal for finishing the negotiations and actions required for the official recognizing the deal of the century. In the following parts, we shall mention why the code name of the Illuminati's apocalyptic operation in 2019 was Notre Dame Cathedral, and why the iPet Goat 2 animation was released with the keyword Notre Dame in 2019, 7 years after its initial release. Furthermore, there's another very important point regarding the selection of Notre Dame Cathedral to be burnt and destroyed for the Antichrist's final resurrection. The point is found by closely observing the history of the Knight Templars, Evil Creed's eradication as the ancestors to the modern Freemasonry, and the events surrounding it. In short, it has been mentioned that at the time of Philip IV of France, Knight Templars were marked as heretics by Pope Clement V for various reasons such as heathenism, homosexuality, apostasy, and the worship of the goat-headed god called Baphomet. The Grand Master of Knight Templars, Jacques de Molay, who is known as the last Grand Master of this creed, was sentenced to death, along with a large number of other Knight Templars. It is mentioned in different books and articles that to execute Jacques de Molay's sentence, he was transferred to a region in front of Notre Dame Cathedral in Paris, and he was thrown into the fire in front of the cathedral.
Des innocents qui meurent! Honte sur vous tous! Dieu vous jugera! Pape Clément, chevalier Guillaume de Nogaret, roi Philippe, avant 1 an, je vous cite à apparaître au tribunal de Dieu pour y recevoir votre juste châtiment. Maudit! Maudit! Soyez maudits! Jusqu'à la 13e génération de mon race! Maudit! Maudit! Ah!
Alors, mon frère, voilà content, je pense.
Non, je ne suis pas content. J'ai commis une erreur. J'aurais dû leur faire arracher la langue avant de les brûler.
Jacques de Molay, the Grand Master, who was sentenced to death, was quoted as he was being thrown into the fire and facing Notre Dame Cathedral. God knows who is mistaken and has sinned. Soon a tragedy shall befall those who have sentenced us to death. Although common people and some historians recognize the death of Pope Clement V and King Philip IV, the ones responsible for Jacques de Molay's demise, shortly after burning him as a direct result of the de Molay's curse, it would seem that their suspicious deaths were caused by conspiracies conducted by the remnants of the Knight Templars, and there are other factors at play behind the natural causes of death mentioned in history books. Besides, the meaning behind using the word God by Jacques de Molay has been no one but the goat-headed god Baphomet, who is a portrait of the devil. In particular, one of the accusations made toward Knight Templars was the worship of Baphomet, which has also been indicated in the books written in the age after the Knight Templars' prominence. However, the important point that is related to our current discussion and the present scene is that the last Grand Master of Knight Templars, Jacques de Molay, was thrown into the fire and burned in front of Notre Dame Cathedral. With this burning came the end of the Knight Templars. Their heirs continued their existence in secret and hiding for many years. However, Jacques de Molay's intended revenge was exacted on April 15, 2019, precisely when the same Notre Dame Cathedral that witnessed his burning was being burned. The fire would dispel the final resurrection of Freemasonry and Illuminati, and their exit from hiding and underground concurrent with Jacques de Molay's promised revenge. This revenge from Notre Dame Cathedral and setting it on fire is in the sense of a celebration for the Freemasons' resurrection and their return to Jerusalem for the Antichrist's coronation at the beginning of the third millennia. Unfortunately, it seems this intelligent enterprise and villainous revenge is being pursued by Freemasons and Illuminati with utmost care and attention.